Coming up on the Ensemble PSG Podcast, we're talking all about PSG's upcoming match against Botafogo in the Club World Cup. But first, a big thank you to everyone out there who has subscribed to Ensemble PSG on Substack. We really appreciate your support, and a special shout out to all those annual members. As you know, this is a very exciting time to be a PSG supporter, so I do hope you consider subscribing. It's $5 per month or $50 for the whole year, and we've got some great content for you to check out from football journalists and PSG supporters, and you'll also get access to our Discord server. To get started, it's simple. Just visit psgtalk.substack.com. All right, let's get back to the show, because joining me today is Pedro from Glorious Botafogo. You can follow him on X at GloriousBotaYT. We talk about the history of Botafogo, the last time our two teams faced off, and we preview the Club World Cup match on Thursday from the Rose Bowl. It's a great conversation with a lot of insight, and you'll hear it right after the intro. All right, welcome to the show, Pedro from the Glorious Botafogo site, the ultimate source for Botafogo news in English. Pedro, I want to thank you for reaching out to me on X to set this up. PSG and Botafogo will face off on Thursday evening in the Rose Bowl. We're going to preview that match, but first, tell us a little bit about your website, Glorious Botafogo, and how you became a fan.
Yeah, first of all, thanks, man. Thanks for the invite. It's really cool to do this kind of stuff, and the World Cup of clubs, or the Club World Cup, as you're saying it, is the perfect opportunity to do these kind of things.
Yeah.
We don't teams from South America and from the U.S. and from Europe and Asia, whatever it is, we don't really get to play each other as much as we used to in the past. So a little fun fact, and I'm not doing this to throw any shade on PSG, but Botafogo and PSG have played each other one time in the past, and Botafogo defeated PSG 3-1, and that was in 1984 at the Geneva tournament in Switzerland. Very, very interesting little piece of history there. But
cool.
It's been since 1984, right? We're in 2025, so, and it's also cool to see how the European teams match up against the South American teams, because arguably that's where the best schools of football are. It's usually the best academies, quote unquote, or to develop raw talent is in the South America, which is why European teams come and get a 19-year-old or a 15-year-old or in Messi's case, even younger, and take them to Europe and then develop them there. And it's really interesting how now we get to face off like that. And it just doesn't always work like that. But yeah, man, I've been a lifelong fan of Botafogo. I was born into a family where my dad was a Botafogo supporter. My mom used to be a supporter of Vasco, and she has now converted into a Botafogo supporter. Nobody likes to be a Vasco supporter anyways. And then I have uncles that are Botafogo supporters, and from where I'm from, it's a state in Brazil called the Espírito Santo, the Holy Spirit, a very, very religious name there. It's the Espírito Santo, and I'm from a town called Vitória. And in that town, so the whole state as a whole doesn't actually have a football team in the professional divisions. Neither the A, so in Brazil there's 4, A, B, C, and D. And right now in this current time, there's 1 in Serie D, I believe. But we don't go up to the Serie A or B or C very often in my state. So the natural thing is to look for teams outside of the state to support for, because then in my state, you have the national team that you support, right? Brazil, and then you have the club team, and then you have your state team. So when you do that, it gets a little bit confusing sometimes, because sometimes those teams will have like friendlies and stuff. But the closest state to mine that borders it is Rio, and Botafogo is from Rio. And where Botafogo is from, it's about a 30-minute plane ride. It's not that far. So Flamengo, Botafogo, Vasco, and Fluminense. So out of those 4, 3 are in the World Cup of Clubs. Those are mainly the teams that are like super popular. So Botafogo was a very, very popular team in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. I mean, very popular. If you don't know a little bit about the history of the club, Botafogo was, at least how we say it in Brazil, and Botafogo supporters like to claim it a lot and make it known to their rivals that if Brazil has 5 world titles, 3 are because of Botafogo, because of players that we had in the team. At one point in time, the Brazilian national team in its early days, out of the 11 players, 8 that were starting were for Botafogo. So the club and the country are very deeply tied and rooted in historic. What's the word I'm looking for? Brazil and Botafogo, one cannot be without the other. And
who's would you say is the biggest player in the club's history?
Ooh, you're putting me in a hot seat right now because there's a few.
Okay.
But I guess the arguably the 2 most known players in the Botafogo history are Garrincha, and I don't know if you heard that name before, and there's a player called Nilton Santos. And a little backstory to those guys. Garrincha is younger than Nilton Santos, and Nilton Santos, his nickname when he was playing professional and playing for the national team and going to World Cups and all that, his name was the Encyclopedia of Football, because he was very knowledgeable. He had a high IQ of that time frame. Like that time period, he was such a smart player. And he played as a left back. But he was the very first left back in history to step from a defensive position into an offensive left back. So he's the very first left back in recorded history to make the switch from defensive left back to offensive left back. So he's regarded as the father of modern day fullbacks, Nilton Santos. And he's one of the very few players in the history of football to have only played for one club and country. So Nilton Santos only played for Botafogo his entire career. Garrincha, on the other hand, he's the only other player that Pelé has said, if there is somebody better than me, it's him. So
that's higher praise than that.
That's high praises, right? And Garrincha was older than Pelé as well. And when Pelé got hurt in the World Cup final of '62, Garrincha put the whole team in his back, and he won the cup. Really single-handedly won the World Cup for Brazil. And he's just also known as like the father of modern dribbling. Garrincha was known for the step overs and the body feints and the cutbacks, and you go one way, the defender bites, and then when you realize he's already gone the other way and most likely scored. So he's regarded as one of, if not the best dribbler in football history. And I have this opinion, and I don't know if you share this opinion, that obviously as technology increases and we know more about nutrition and strength training and speed and agility, players will be better, right? But if you take the historical context of that time and you try to extrapolate it in a way and try to kind of compare and match players of nowadays, those players, if they had the technology available and the knowledge available back then, I think now they'd be just as good, if not better, than they were back then. And to me, I think that that goes to show what kind of talent it was in the early days. And though people will say you're playing a bunch of farmers, you're playing a bunch of people working at the fields and then they play football at night or whatever. But I don't think we should disregard the historical aspect of football, because the same goes for all the other countries in the world that play football. Yeah. It's not just Brazil that had immense amount of talent. Argentina and France and Netherlands with Cruyff, and I mean you just go on and on.
Yeah. I echo a lot of what you said about the players in the past. Not only would they be just as good, I think maybe they'd be a little bit tougher as well than some of the players these days.
Yeah. I mean, look how they were playing back then.
Yeah.
Shin guards? What are shin guards?
Yeah. The pitches were not the carpets that we know today.
All uneven. Give a guy like Pelé a perfect pitch where PSG plays every weekend. And have him practice there for all throughout the academy, and give him the nutrition. Pelé was one of the most incredible athletes in the history of any sport. You look at Cristiano Ronaldo and how far he can jump in the air. Pelé was jumping higher than he was when Pelé was playing. which is insane, right? But
Yes.
anyways, going back, so I think Garrincha and Newton Santos are the biggest Botafogo icons. Our home stadium is named after Newton Santos, so it's the Newton Santos Stadium, because there is another stadium in Brazil named Garrincha. So that's what I'm saying. Botafogo and the country are very intertwined in their history. So that's like the background of what kind of team you're playing.
I really appreciate that background. A lot of PSG fans may not know Botafogo and the history. I know I just had a nice history lesson, so I so appreciate you sharing all that. But let's look ahead here. Let's look at it. We looked in the past. Let's go forward. Let's get into this match. PSG Botafogo kicks off, as I said, Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time from the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. Both teams, they won their first match of the group stage of the Club World Cup. Nice job beating the Seattle Sounders. Tell us about this Botafogo side. Who are the players PSG should be looking out for? What style of football do you think they're going to deploy against the European champions?
Man, if any PSG fans were watching that second half, I just want to say that was a glitch in the Matrix. I don't know what happened in that second half. I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't even know the manager knows, because we were watching from home. We were like, what is he doing? Why is he playing this guy a left winger when he's supposed to be a striker? Why is our left winger playing left back? Why is this guy like, what are you doing? So with that aside, Botafogo is coming from its best year in its history. Right, it's a club that was founded in 1894, and 2024 was the best year, in sports. We won the Brazilian Championship, which is regarded as one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive, tournament in the world. And I say that only because the teams are very well even, and even the middle table teams do give the other teams a run for their money. The champions and the relegation zone are usually not decided until the very last round. And we won the Libertadores, which is the equivalent of the Champions League, but for South America. Like the Libertadores is the Champions League of South America. So, and we won that in like historic. It was the most epic, and I don't say that because I'm a Botafogo supporter. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but Botafogo was playing with a man down from the very first minute of the first half, and we won 3-1.
That's insane. So we're coming up against a very strong side that coming off their best season in club history.
Yeah, but things have changed though. Like the manager's no longer there. We have a new manager, and he's trying to introduce his play style, which is part of what your question was. Our last manager played in a 4-2-4, so hyper offensive. Like the mids were box to box, doing the through balls and helping with build up play, and we had the wingers that sunk the opponent teams as far as the corner flags, just to be able to bring the team in and box them into their own half. And Botafogo was very dominant that way, and we had the players to do it, but we lost our two best players, which was Thiago Almada, that was playing in the MLS for ATL season ago, and we lost Luis Henrique, which is the right winger that won best player of the Brazilian tournament, best player of the Libertadores, and he won a voting that he was crowned King of South America, and he won that over Messi. So, incredible player, and he's now playing for the national team. He hasn't played in a couple matches, but he's no longer there. And the replacements that we got for those two guys are not up to the same level of those two guys, so they're not as good. Right? If those guys were a 10 out of 10, the replacements are like a 6 or a 7. And we changed the style of play. So this coach, Renato Paiva, which came from the Benfica Academy, he is known for the positional style of play, meaning he expects every player on his team to know how to play every position. Because there will be a point in time where the striker will need to come to play holding mid, or the left back will play left winger, or the center back will have to go up and play striker. Like, obviously that doesn't happen very often in our team.
Sounds a little bit like Luis Enrique. He wants players interchangeable. Just because you're a striker, you can track back and contribute on defense. So
right. Similar. So that's kind of what he does. And like some of our transitions are quick tiki-taka that would lead into a right winger cutting in and trying to find either a cross or a teammate at the top of the 18 for a shot. He likes to do the fullback to fullback connection. And what I mean by that, he likes to have the fullback cross into the back post to where either the striker or the other fullback are waiting. So that's kind of what we do. We don't attack so much through the middle. Obviously, the ball will rotate and something will happen through the middle, but it's mostly using the flanks and then using quick passing to try to break down the defense, to try to bait somebody out of position, to find find something behind them. And there are some players that have excelled at that in our team, and one of them is called Igor Jesus. He's a striker, and he actually, right before the World Cup of Clubs, it was confirmed that he got sold to Nottingham Forest. So he's going to play the Premier League for Forest. And our center back, Jair, which, funny enough, both of them scored against Seattle. Jair scored, both him and Igor Jesus scored against Seattle. So they're both going to Forest. But Jair is a very young center back, 19 or 20 years old. He's a captain of Brazilian U20. And honestly, he's like, in my opinion, he's like the future of the center back position of the national team. If he goes somewhere where he gets a lot of minutes and plays a lot, there's no way he doesn't get called up for the national team for the next cycle. I think this cycle is kind of already gone. There's a lot of different players, and there's players that have been there for a long time, like Marquinhos, for example.
Yeah. Well, but you mentioned he's moving on, and we've got Marquinhos, who's kind of coming to the twilight of his career. And the way you're talking about this center back, I'm kind of wishing we could have signed him as a replacement.
Yeah, man. He was playing for Santos, and Botafogo purchased him in January. He came in because our center back was hurt, our starting center back, which, by the way, won best center back in South America last year. He's hurt. He's with the team right now, but we're not sure if he's going to play. But Jair came in, took the position. And even if our center back comes and is healthy, I'm not sure he starts right away. I think he's going to have to earn his position back. But now that Jair is gone, I think he just comes right back in. But yeah, it's super tall. I think he's like 6'3", 6'4", maybe 5. Like, he's super tall, super young, super lanky. He's got long legs, but he can cover a lot of distance really quick. But as young as he is, he makes a lot of mistakes that you would expect a 19, 20-year-old to make. Another player that's pretty good that's been linked with the Premier League and the Italian Serie A is our left back / left wing, Cuiabano, because under our new manager, our left backs are expected to play left wing. And he found his position at left wing. He's been doing great there. Because our left back is Alex Telles. I don't know if you know Alex. He used to play for Man U and Sevilla, Porto. He's our left back right now.
Okay,
he's great. He's a instant club legend. He took the penalty in the Libertadores final, having not a lot of matches or months with the club, and he took the responsibility. He scored. He cried. Instant club legend. Anyways, but Cuiabano is also another one. We got a center attacking mid called Savarino. He's also very good on the ball. He plays for the Venezuela. I was going to ask you about him
because I used to watch him at RSL, so I was curious how he's getting on there at Botafogo.
Great. He's another instant club legend. Last year, he had 14 goals and 14 assists. So that's insane. That's double digits for both. That's crazy. You don't usually hear that. He's doing very good.
Well, I was just going to say what it sounds like is these two teams have similar playing style, interchangeable players, the wingers. So for PSG, Nuno Mendes, you got Achraf Hakimi. Whether or not they start, we don't have a lot of depth at those positions, but if they start, they get forward a lot. They have to track back. They're, box to box. So it sounds like Botafogo kind of has similar type players where they're expected to get forward and join and not really sit back that much.
That's right.
Could be an entertaining match, I think, on Thursday.
I mean, our owner likes a hyper-offensive style of football. He got that with the last manager. I think this manager is still trying to find how to play it in his own way. Because I don't think he is that manager like naturally. But I think he's learning to be that manager, which is causing a lot of growing pangs for both the players, for the manager, and supporters. Like, for example, against Seattle Sounders, like, our entire fan base are like, what is he doing? You know, he was just doing so good. We're coming from like 10 matches of really positive results. We had one fluke in between that, which we played a third string players to play a team that we beat in the first leg, like 4 or 5-0 of a cup. So this was the second leg. There was no way we were going to lose to that team. So we played a third string in reserves and substitutes. I know we lost 1-0, but again, that's a glitch in the matrix kind of thing. But other than that, like the first team under this new manager has been doing really good for the last 10 matches. Before then, it was total freaking disaster. I'd say about 85% of the fan base was calling for his departure. It was like, this guy needs to go. For the manager, like the manager needs to go. But now I'd say it's like 25% of the fan base are saying this guy needs to go.
Give it time. I mean, we had some people in the PSG fan base, believe it or not, we're ready to go. Luis Enrique, thanks, you're not the guy. And then look, we ended up winning our first Champions League. So stick with the manager, you know, even if it's a little rough in the beginning.
Because the difference is last year when the guy that, you know, led us to greatness, it only took him 2 matches, and you could see already what his plan was. You could see it right away. I mean, in the first match, we were like, he's playing a 4-2 what? 4-2-4? Who defends in this team? But he didn't care about defending.
No, just outscored everyone.
He wanted to impose, you know, and that's what we did all season long, man. And that's how we beat everybody. But so this guy, he's not that. He's like the transitional style, positional style. He's a build-up guy.
Gotcha. Well, I'm officially really excited for this match. Not only do I have the background on the club now, but then it sounds like, even though this manager's a little bit different, it sounds like a lot of the players that are still there are attack-minded. And, you know, it's the Club World Cup. Teams are going to be going for it. And that's where I want to talk about next is just this tournament as a whole. And he goes by Urban Reflex on our Discord server. You know, he was wondering, you know, over in Europe, there's a lot of doom and gloom about this competition. We saw some images today from some of the games that were midday and sparsely attended, to put it lightly. I know you're based in the U.S. You have a lot of connections, though, to Brazil and South American teams. And so how are your fan base, how are other South American fans, how do they perceive this tournament? Are they really looking forward to taking down these European teams? Or is it, hey, let's just go in there and it's a big cash grab and let's get as much money as we can? What is the perception of fans right now?
Oh man, Brazilian teams are definitely glory over money when it comes to this. I mean, the money is gonna come, you know, if you win your matches or whatever. But that's not what they're thinking about. They're thinking about, we want to go in there and win this world title. Because in Brazil, man, like I was telling you before, during the 70s and 60s, the calendar wasn't what it is today. So, you know, between competitions, that'd be like a month or 2 months of no official games. So what would Brazilian teams do? They would go to Europe on like another mini preseason, and they would play European teams. And that's how Botafogo ended up playing PSG in the past. And Botafogo played Benfica. Botafogo played Juventus and won a title over Juventus. And Botafogo played Barcelona and beat the crap out of them. So, like, those kinds of things that our fathers and grandfathers used to tell us, oh yeah, like Botafogo played Eusebio's Benfica. We were like, what? Like Botafogo played against Cruyff? Really? That would have been awesome to watch. And this newer generation has never seen anything like this. So for us, it's like, man, like we're kind of living in a time where my dad and my grandfather were living, and they saw this and they saw success. Now, I don't know if this is a question for later, but I'm telling you this right now. I do not feel confident against PSG. So, but I think it's just I'm just being real, right? Like I'm not expecting us to go over there and win 3-0 against PSG. And if I do, whoever scores all 3 goals, I'm tattooing them across my back. You know,
I love that.
Well, I don't expect, but Brazilians are like, this is time to go for glory, because when we do play European teams, remember there is another World Cup, like a World Cup style where there's only 7 teams, and the Europeans usually jump straight to the final. That's what happened with Man City when Man City played Fluminense for the World Cup final. Real Madrid, like all those teams already go straight to the final, and then the South Americans and the rest of the world kind of have to battle it out to see who gets to the final. But now we go into a group stage right away against European teams. And like earlier today, Fluminense, which is arguably the weakest of the 4 Brazilian teams, they tied Dortmund. And not only did they tie Dortmund, they were playing better than Dortmund. Okay, and at the World Cup that happens at the end of the year is usually at the end of the season for Brazil teams. So the season in Brazil is from February to December. So by December, these guys are drained. They're done, right? Because I mean, there's a flyer going around. I don't know if you saw comparing the amount of matches that the teams in the World Cup Club have played in the last season. Botafogo and Flamengo are clocking in with 73, 74 matches last year. So Botafogo, after we won the Libertadores, after we won the Brasileirão, we had to travel to Qatar the day after to play this world tournament, and we ended up playing this Mexican team, Pachuca, and we lost. But we just looked dead. Like the players were dead, right? But in Europe, you play like anywhere between 50 and 60 matches, and that's it. So right now we are in the middle of our season. We are fresh, right? We're 30 games in, not 70. And the European teams are now at the end of their season. So now their situations are reversed. So they're like, oh, okay, yeah, but, Porto, when they play Palmeiras, they're so tired because they played all season long. Okay, but what happens when Brazilian teams go and play on that tournament at the end of the year? We're also tired. So what's your excuse? Right? And
Absolutely.
I mean, São Paulo beat Liverpool in 2005. What was the excuse then? So this is why we're so excited about this, because now we get to play these teams when we're healthy. And Porto tied with Palmeiras, Fluminense tied with Benfica. So so far it's looking good for Brazilian teams. Yeah,
I would say so. And there's been several Brazilian players that are at PSG throughout the history. Of Marquinhos, we talked about, Thiago Silva, Neymar, Ronaldinho, Rai, Dani Alves, David Luiz. So PSG has a pretty good presence in Brazil, in South America. I know there's a lot of fans down there, and so
thanks to Ronaldinho, I think he started it all.
Or no, I think Rai maybe. I have to go back to
Rai,
the
yes. And then Ronaldinho, yes. You're right.
So they have a big presence there, and I think this match was already going to be exciting. And then you add the Club World Cup and these two teams getting together, and the opportunity, like you said, you guys are mid-season form. PSG just came off this massive achievement that they've been going for a long time now, and so they look good against Atletico. But I do wonder if we.
Come on, man. That was total dominance. They looked better than good. They dominated.
Well, let me ask you. This game is kicking off a little bit later in the evening. Atletico was talking about the heat and all this. I haven't looked at the weather report, but I can't imagine there'll be any of that in this match. You guys are ready to go. The heat's not going to be a problem, right? I can't imagine.
For Brazilian teams, no, the heat's not a problem. I will say this. At the peak of the summer, the Texas heat is something else. It's not the heat in Brazil, obviously it's close to the equator, blah, 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 blah. It's hot over there. But I do feel the sympathy for Atletico players that were complaining of the heat, because even though they were playing in California summer, which is a nice little cuddly summer, it's not a Texas summer, it's still hot for them. It's a different kind of heat, man. Like when you're in this side of this world, it's a different kind of heat. So Botafogo and PSG playing later at night. I don't see a scenario in which Botafogo wins, but if they do, it's not going to be an excuse for a PSG to use. But then again, I don't think it's kind of like the Avengers. You've seen the Avengers, the movie The Avengers.
Yeah.
When they go to Doctor Strange and they ask how many. I don't know how many scenarios, how many Botafogo wins. It's probably the same case. There's only one.
Well, I think the temperature, if it's not crazy hot, if maybe a cool breeze, maybe that makes the play a little bit better. Maybe not as many hydration breaks. The fan could win out in the end. It could be a good back and forth match.
Hydration break is something that we are very used to, because in Brazil, when the season starts, it's summer. So the players are just starting the preseason, and you got to go slow. So they have hydration breaks at like at the 25th mark. There's hydration. At our 20th mark, there's hydration because the summer in Brazil is also brutal. I can tell you that much. But yeah, those players will be used to the heat. That's for sure.
They'll be ready to go. Real quick, I sent you the link before we started recording. There was a fun video. There was a Botafogo fan in LA who bumped into Vitinha on the street. I also like that Vitinha, who might be the best midfielder in the world right now, can just walk around the street and no one bothers him. But this Botafogo fan saw him, and then I'll let you take it from here. So what was the exchange there? And just maybe talk about that. And then you also mentioned that there's several PSG players that had come up through someone connected to Botafogo. So just kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that was funny because Vitinha just kind of minding his business. And these 2 or 3 Botafogo guys are asking him if he knows Marlon Freitas, which Marlon Freitas is our box-to-box center mid, which is kind of what Vitinha does. He both defends and builds up the play. And they kind of have similar qualities in the sense. Marlon Freitas, for example, is rated number 1 across all midfielders playing in the Club World Cup for most accurate long passes. So Marlon Freitas is number 1 on that list, and Vitinha is included in that list. So that's the quality of player that we're talking about. Now, Marlon Freitas passing and supporting the attack, he's like a lion, but defending, he's like a kitten. So he's got to toughen up for this match, man, because we're gonna need him. Absolutely. But yeah, there's our coach came up through the Benfica Academy. He was the academy for a long time, and he said that there are 3 players on PSG right now that he propelled into professional football. And since Vitinha came through Porto, I'm assuming he's talking about the other 3 because there's 4 Portuguese players on PSG.
Yeah, Nuno Mendes, João Neves, and Gonçalo Ramos.
Yeah, so those 3 came under our coach Renato Paiva. So he probably knows them well.
Very nice. So, all right.
Yeah.
It is prediction time. We talked about the weather. I don't think that's going to be an issue. It's later in the day. So, hopefully these teams, they'll put out good lineups. I also don't think Botafogo is going to whine as much as Atletico Madrid did either. They were really complaining after that match. But we've talked a lot about it. You shared some great insight. What is your score prediction? What do you think this one ends up?
Best case scenario, in my opinion, look, I'm never going to bet against my team. It's just not going to happen. Okay. Call me delusional or whatever. Now, again, out of all the possible scenarios, I think PSG wins 99% of them. I hope that it's not an embarrassing loss if we do lose. But if Botafogo can play at the level that we played at the 2024 Libertadores final, I think we will give PSG a decent competition, more so than Atletico Madrid. I can tell you that. But if we are on an off night, I hope it doesn't turn into a Bayern Auckland thing. But best case scenario for me, 3-2 Botafogo with a goal at the 90th because Mendes kicked it out for a corner instead of a throw in, and then Telles puts it in the box, and Jair jumps higher than Marquinhos, the future and past of the Brazilian national team, and wins it for Botafogo in a historic and heroic fashion.
I wouldn't be mad at it. I do wonder, when this miracle run that PSG's been on, when is it going to end? I thought against Atletico maybe there'd be a letdown, and lo and behold, they just absolutely destroyed them 4-0. And so, yeah.
Again, you guys are at the end of the season, right? So
yeah.
I don't know how much that's going to play a factor. And it does play a factor. I mean, you can look at Atletico Madrid in the heat. Mm-hmm. Those guys were dead, man. They couldn't even sprint 15 yards and they were dead.
They had the first 15 minutes, they were really pressing, and I was like, whoa, this could get bad. But you're right. We just they were chasing shadows after a while. They ran themselves ragged, and then we just took advantage. They were dead. Their legs were so heavy.
So how much is that going to affect PSG going into this match? Because they knew that it was the other European team. If they want to go in first, they have to beat them. So let's play serious. So and they did.
Yeah.
So how much does that affect? How much are these players going to get tired? You guys are not going to have Dembele, correct? Dembele's not.
Yeah,
not healthy
Dembele isn't. He's out for the group stage, and I think Bradley Barclay's also he's not going to be featured. There was a talk
that he could be available for this match. Why? Just rest, man.
Yeah.
Take a break. You don't need to play. You need to play it all season. You won the Champions League. Sit down.
Yeah, I think the best thing would be to rest. We've got some other players, Kang-In we could put up there if we needed to. Seni Mayulu scored a goal in the Champions League final and also scored against Atletico. So, defensively, I think we struggle for some reinforcements, some backup players of quality. But yeah, in the attack, we've got players. So hopefully Barclay is not.
So with that said, let me give my turn to ask a question.
Okay.
How are you guys looking into this match? Like, how are the supporters looking at playing the tournament, and how are you guys looking at the possibility to play the South American teams that have forever been like, if you play us, we'll beat you, So like, how are you guys feeling about that? Yeah,
so the tournament as a whole is kind of a mixed bag. I mentioned earlier some fans in Europe, it's on, the games are on late. It's kind of, they see this for a little bit what it is, just a cash grab. So some fans are kind of tuning out on it. I'm in the United States. There's a lot of fans here. There was some 80,000 at the Rose Bowl against Atletico Madrid. There's a lot of fans in the U.S. who have been starved from seeing PSG. They haven't come over here for preseason tournaments. So I think as PSG advance in this tournament, you're going to see a real heavy contingent of PSG fans attending these matches because they just are craving to see this team, and it's coming off the heels of the Champions League victory. So I think they're going to be well supported as far as they go in this tournament. As far as this game coming up against Botafogo, I think they're seeing that, hey, look, if we can get a result here, then we maybe can really rotate.
Because whoever wins qualifies, basically.
Exactly, yeah. So we can take it easy. We can rest. That game's going to be in Seattle, if I'm not mistaken. So, traveling to another stadium and same time zone and all that. So I don't think there'll be jet lag. Yeah, the weather. So if we can just get this game, I think if we can just get this one done, we can win and rest up for the knockout stage. I think that's kind of how fans are looking at this. But after we've talked and hearing about your club, I think we are in for a really entertaining game here. I think this is going to be back and forth. I think it'll be tight. You guys, mid-season, like you were saying, and I think it's going to be really entertaining. And your team's going to want to definitely... I mean, think about the headlines. If Botafogo can go against PSG after the Champions League win, maybe embarrass them a little bit. Maybe PSG comes into this kind of sleepwalking a little bit, maybe not prepared. We haven't seen it much under Luis Enrique, but as I was saying earlier, I mean, when is this miracle run going to maybe hit a little bit of a speed bump?
I mean, because in Brazil, this is being framed as a champion of Europe versus the champions of South America.
Yeah.
So this is... I mean, I'm telling you, man, there's going to be a lot of eyes in this match.
Do you think Botafogo fans be there in good numbers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, more than they were in Seattle. I think in this Seattle, because I'm on WhatsApp groups with friends from Brazil and some Botafogo supporters from the United States, and the come to arms, the rally for the battle against Seattle was not as big as it's currently being for PSG. There's going to be a lot of Botafogo fans. The Botafogo supporters are loud at the stadium, man. They're always singing. They're always chanting. It doesn't matter how many goals the teams are down. Like last season, the manager and the players said that the supporters were literally the 12th player. So the supporters are really like one of the best. In Brazil, Botafogo supporters are seen as one of the best supporters in the country. I like Botafogo. I used a reference. I don't know if you played The Last of Us, the game The Last of Us on PlayStation.
No, but it's a movie now, right? Streaming.
It's a TV show, yeah.
Yeah.
But on the second game, there's a part of the game where the protagonist goes to Seattle, and the camp. Spoiler alert: the camp is set at Lumen Field. So there is a scene where it says Seattle Day 1. And I was like, please, Botafogo, make a meme, make a post saying Seattle Day 1 with the Botafogo jersey at Lumen Field. And they did it. They did it, man. I was so happy
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. I love it. I love the banter when clubs on social media. PSG got into it a little while with, we played Dortmund a couple years and they were going back and forth. That's always fun to see clubs get involved in those back and forth.
Yeah, man. And this is why this tournament is great. And I know a lot of European supporters are saying, this is a cash grab. I mean, it's a lot of money on the line, though.
Yeah.
For if you win this tournament, you get a lot of money.
I mean, what would that do for your transfer window? Would it mean maybe you can keep some of these young players instead of letting them go? Like, how would that transform your club if you ended up winning this thing?
So, World Cup of Clubs, grand prize in cash. Let's see what that is real quick.
I think because 30 something if you just for the final.
$125 million in cash for the winner. 125.
That's cumulative. So each stage you get money, and if you win the whole thing, so you walk away with.
It's a $1 billion prize pool. It's a lot of money, man. A lot of money. And for a Brazilian team, that makes a lot of difference. Now, Botafogo, I don't know if you are aware, Botafogo is owned by an American. His name is John Textor. And he was he was a guy that was venture. You know John Textor.
I know John Textor. We know John Textor
from Olympique
Lyonnais. Yes.
Yes. So
our president called him a cowboy, and then he came out there in the match with a cowboy hat. It was the whole thing.
Yes. So there's also another aspect to this match because Textor owns Olympique as well. So it's another rivalry with your owner inside the pitch. There's more than just this thing at play. There's banter between John Textor and your guy. And as far as I'm understanding, what was a very hostile interaction ended up kind of made a not a complete 180, maybe a 120, to where they're kind of meeting, and he invited John Textor to the final, and John Textor was present, and they talked. So I think that's for the best. I think that's for the best of French football because Olympique Lyonnais and PSG and Marseille are and maybe Monaco are the biggest teams, and I feel like if the strongest teams have a healthy relationship, it'll be better for the betterment of the whole league as well.
Absolutely. And then we're arguing over TV rights, which is something as fans. I mean, it's next to impossible to watch PSG games. You got to sign up for beIN on an obscure network. I mean, the whole thing's a nightmare.
For Botafogo supporters in the United States is hard, man.
Is it? Oh, how do you watch? Yeah,
it's hard. So last year, Botafogo had a deal with the rights with the TV, and Botafogo actually streamed every home game in English in their YouTube page.
We need to get PSG to do this.
But this year that hasn't happened because there's a lot of politics involved in Brazilian football, and one of the biggest clubs in Brazil, which is our biggest rival, they don't want to sign the deal because they think that they should earn more money than all of the other teams because they have more fans and more supporters and blah blah blah. They are worth more than the other teams, and it's like, if you're worth more than the other teams, then you should show that on the pitch by winning the titles. Like, sign the deal, get the same amount of money that the little guy is going to get so they can also compete and make the tournament better. So we don't have just 4 or 5 teams competing for the title at the end of the season. Like, make sure everybody can do good, Like, it's better as a product. If you want to sell, this is why the French championship, the Ligue 1, is hard to sell.
Yeah.
Because PSG wins almost every other year. So how do you sell a product where the customer already knows what the end result's going to be?
Yeah. No. So it's we need John Textor to spend money. We need more investments into the league, but a lot of it starts with the TV deal because then it helps the mid to lower table teams keep some of these great young players instead of going to the Premier League. They can get a big payday, which is why I was saying if you guys were to win this tournament, maybe you don't need to let them go to Nottingham Forest or whatever. You can keep them for a few more years.
But also in Brazil, there's this thing about these players that are like in between the window of 18 and 25. They want to go to Europe. They want to play the Premier League. They want to play the La Liga. They want to be in the top leagues, right? But And on the other hand, maybe we can keep them a little bit longer. So maybe instead of leaving at 18, they can leave at 22 or 23, or maybe they can come to Brazil at 28 or 29 instead of 35. Right? So
absolutely invest in facilities, upgrades, all that kind of stuff.
And Texter did a lot of that for Botafogo, man. And I think some Botafogo fans are quick to criticize John Texter. And I have criticized him for the choice of the manager. He's not immune to criticism. I think us as fans, we should criticize the owners of the team because they need to be held accountable. But look at what he's done. Like Alex Telles went to Botafogo and he said the infrastructure here is as good, if not better, than what I saw in Europe. Wow. You know, like,
and he would
Botafogo. Yeah. He would know. Yeah, he would be the one to know. So our players are going from our, training centers and everything that we have to offer. They're going to Europe, and they're not going to be like, oh my God. What's going to happen instead is like, oh wow, like Botafogo is really keeping up with these European clubs, and maybe he's going to hear about this one player that is trying to transfer back to Brazil, and maybe that player gives him a call and be like, hey, what was that like at Botafogo? Oh, you know what? I'm at Forest right now, and I don't see any difference. It's just as good. So that also plays a factor, man,
That's interesting. All right. Thank you so much, Pedro, for coming on the show. Go ahead and plug your website and all your work with Botafogo.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, and all the PSG supporters watching right now. Just want to say thank you for listening, because God knows and my wife knows I talk a lot.
That's why we do this podcasting.
But it was fun, man. I had a lot of fun talking to you and kind of explaining a little bit, because not a lot of supporters are going to know the backstory, especially in a tournament like this where they kind of don't even care to begin with. So this is fun for me to spread the word. So if you want to know more about Botafogo, you can go to where I'm most active, which is on YouTube at Glorious, just like it is right there, right next to my name, Glorious Botafogo. And you can go on X, which is actually where I'm most active, is on X and then on YouTube. I just released a couple of days ago the condensed history of Botafogo in English. Is about 16 minutes long. It talks about the inception of the club until literally pre-Seattle Sounders match. And just want to actually take the time to thank everybody that's watched it. They got like 16,000 views in less than 24 hours.
All right. Well, Pedro, thank you so much. I'll retweet all your work. I think it's fantastic for PSG fans to see that heading into the match. You enjoy the match on Thursday. Best of luck the rest of the season.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'd say good luck, but I don't think you guys need it.
I don't know. That's why they play the games, right? So we'll see.
May the best team win.
There you go. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you.